Hello, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
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 Okay,
Yes.
let's see Do we have? All right. Sorry, I'm having to use my phone tonight. I having technical difficulties, so we're gonna go with it. I'm gonna try to get through the public hearing and the special meeting component, but I may have to drop off for the committee meetings. With that said, I'd like to call this special meeting of the Municipal Council to order at 7 p.m. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice for this? Actually, would you kindly roll call attendance and then read the notice for this special meeting?
Yes, okay, so this is for attendance. Mr. Blair?
Here.
Mr. DeSimone?
Here.
Mr. Conti? I believe he's not here. Mr. Waterman?
Here.
Vice President Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Delissio?
Here.
Mr. Cobus?
Here.
Ms. Dolan?
Here.
Ms. Reynolds?
Here.
Ms. Holmes?
Present.
President Cooper?
Here.
Everyone is in attendance except Mr. Conti.
Thank you. And would you read the notice of tonight?
I will. Date October 12th, 2021, to members of the Municipal Council from Mark J. Cooper, President. Councils by authority of Article 2, Section 2-7C of the Attleboro Home Rule Charter. I hereby call a special meeting of the Municipal Council as follows. Date, Tuesday, October 26th, 2021. Time, 7 p.m. Place, Zoom link. Purpose, to discuss any legal matters before the council. Sincerely, Mark J. Cooper, President. CC, Mayor Paul Harut.
Thank you. And is the city assessor on? I can't see the list of participants for some reason. Let me see if I can.
He's on, President Cooper.
Okay, great. So that said, Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice of tonight's public hearing?
Well, if I can find it. Hold on. It's a continued public hearing for setting the tax classification for fiscal year 2022.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? I know that the assessor is on, and start with Julie Hobson and then go to anyone else.
Hi, good evening, councilors.
Good evening.
Hello.
So, Julie, are you just going to walk us through the presentation, or how do you want to?
Sure, I can do that. So we did receive certification, and so all of the numbers in the packet have been updated. They didn't make a big impact to the presentation I had prepared before, but I just wanted to give you the updated numbers. And so, as we know, in order to set the tax rate, the city needs to establish final values for all taxable real and personal property as of January 1st. We need to determine the maximum amount that we can levy under Proposition 2.5. And then the City Council needs to hold a public hearing and decide its tax policy, whether or not it's going to shift the burden from the residential to commercial, and what factor they may use to do that if they so decide. Every 5 years is the Department of Revenue and Bureau of Local Assessment certifies as to whether the Board of Assessors is assessing property at full and fair cash value. Fiscal 2022 was Attleboro certification year. As part of this process, we had to undergo intense scrutiny to ensure consistency and uniformity of local assessments. This year, the Assessor's Office revaluation program included field review of 15,000 parcels, 1,000 cyclical inspections, analysis and inspection of 950 property transfers or sales, analysis and income expense data of 700 commercial properties was analyzed, inspection and review of forms of list of 370 personal property accounts. Once the parcel data was updated and statistical analysis was performed, adjustments were made to land and building tables as required to properly value each property. After receiving preliminary approval of values, the proposed assessments were posted and public disclosure was completed. Taxpayers were encouraged to review the proposed assessments and contact the assessor's office to discuss and ask questions. And we did have people do that, and I was very happy to see that. Assessments were then submitted to the Department of Revenue for final certification, which, as I said, was recently received. The assessed values, this is our LA4 from the gateway system that was certified on October 22nd, 2021. And as you can see, the values on most classes did go up. It was an average of, I would say, 10%. Apartment buildings were the biggest increase that we saw. And so I had put together a chart showing the correlation of the sales to the assessed values. As you know, we assess based on full fair market value, and that's why the sales analysis is so important. And you can see the trend of the sales and how it affects the assessments. And we're seeing the sales go up and up, especially in the multifamilies, which you see in the second chart. They went up over a 5-year period, 2, 3, and 4 to 8 units, an average of 50%. It was a huge increase. And just this last year, they went up 12%. The new growth, we got certified. We had $1,349,057 of new growth. The new growth is any new buildings, big improvements, rebuilds to buildings. Most of it was in the residential, 52% was. We had a big jump in the personal property. New England Power had a lot of equipment that they added in the city. So that's the biggest increase you see in the personal property numbers for new growth. And this chart just shows that the majority of the new growth was in the residential. Again, the personal property did increase more than it has in the past, and that was due to the utilities. I thought it was interesting to point out that although 53% of the single family residential properties are valued under $350,000, 78% of the single family residential levy is paid by the properties that are valued over $350,000. So to the next page, building the levy limit. Again, you start with the previous year's levy limit, add the proposition 2.5% increase, and then on top of that, any new growth is added. And then because we do have a debt exclusion for the high school in Attleboro, you add the debt exclusion in to get the new levy limit for fiscal year 2022. The high school debt exclusion adds approximately $1.09 to the tax rate, just so you have that in mind. And the average single family value home of $359,600 would see an additional $391.96 of tax due to the debt exclusion alone. The next chart is just the historical assessed values. I call it my kitchen sink chart. It's everything in the kitchen sink. And it just shows the trends and how the levy has increased, what the factor has been that's been chosen by the council, how that affected the percentage of levy, how it shifted. It's just a good tool to see where we've been and where we might be going. And then your tax levy option sheet just basically shows you all the levy by class, what the levy limit is. And I shows different factors to show you how that would impact the percentage of levy that each class will pay, how that would impact the average single-family residential tax bill, and how it would impact the average commercial and industrial tax bill. And the next chart is just a visualization of how the different shifts would affect the tax rates and the percentage of increase and decrease to the residential, increase to the commercial at the different factors. Top 10 taxpayers for fiscal year 2022. This was built based on the 2021 tax rate, since we don't have the tax rate yet for 2022. Again, you see a lot of the utility companies are up at the top of the list. Bristol Place is at the top of the list. Again, they usually are. They're our biggest development. And then fiscal year 2021 average tax bill comparison. It keeps falling the same every year. Attleboro's in the middle. Easton's at the top. Dartmouth is at the bottom. We really tend to fall in the middle year after year after year. And then the last two sheets in the package are just more of your shift options. This is a form we can run through the gateway system to just show the myriad of options that the council does have. And that is that.
Right, any questions for Julie at this time? You have to speak up because I can't see everybody like I normally can.
I would want to too, Mark.
Okay.
As well.
Me too.
Okay, so let's go Councilor Kobus, Reynolds, and was that?
Simone.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Julie, and everything looks great. And I'd just like to try to confirm some of my understanding of this. So based on everything and the confirmed numbers, it looks like overall the levy is increasing by 7% total, with the debt exclusion and all
Correct.
that. And this is with the $6 million for the debt exclusion this year. I believe this represents sort of the largest debt exclusion year for us with the payback. And I believe from here forward it'll start going down. Is that
Correct. That's
rough?
my understanding as well. Yes.
Okay. So overall the levy is increasing by 7%. And it was also interesting to see the overall assessed value for residential as a whole increased by roughly 8%. And I believe commercial as a whole increased by roughly it was interesting to see the assessed value for commercial increase by roughly 6%. And my understanding is normally commercial is relatively flat year over year, but this year was a little bit different. Was that because of the reevaluation, or?
It was more scrutiny is put to the income and expense forms in the revaluation year. In addition, we did have some we had some gas stations that were completed. We had a couple of office buildings that were completed that we haven't seen in years past. I think everybody knows that the commercial has been very stagnant in the city for a lot of years. So that's what made the increase look even larger this year, because we haven't seen much development at all in the last few years.
Okay. And it was also, you answered my question about the personal property increase and the large increase, and that was largely the utilities in the right.
Correct. Yep.
And then in looking at your sheet with the different options, in looking at for the average homeowner's bill, if we leave things the same at 1.34, am I reading it correctly that if we stay the same, the average homeowner's bill will increase by 6%, and
Correct.
the average commercial tax bill will stay relatively flat.
Yes.
Is that roughly, okay?
Yeah.
I think that's, so I think I understand things now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Counselor Cooper, my turn. I can't hear you, Mark.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. So, hi, Julie, it's Sarah Reynolds. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm good, thanks.
Okay, that's great to know. But so I looked through these numbers, and every year I have to be honest, I have to re-educate myself around this levy and everything else. But as I looked at it yesterday, looking at the average homeowner that was at one time, I think last year, 278,000, I think it was. I was looking at the jump to almost 350 this year with the new assessments. It might even been 301, and they jumped up to a little over that too. So as we know that with the school and everything, that's going to add another $300, $400, I think, to their bill. But I'm trying to understand why we have to add the 2.5 from Prop 2.5. That's the most we have to do. What would happen for the homeowner? What would the positivity be maybe for the homeowner if we only added 1.5 or 1? Why do we have to add the full 2.5?
So the levy limit is automatically built under Proposition 2.5 with that 2.5% increase. And then, like I said, new growth, and then any debt exclusions, or if there are overrides, get added on top of that. The city is not obligated to levy to the levy limit.
Correct.
I would defer to Jeremy for any questions on how that would be achieved, how that would impact any budgeting that's already been done.
Mhm.
But I can tell you the law of the levy limit is that the city is not bound to levy to the levy limit.
Correct. So that's what I guess I'm asking. So I understand you're going to send it to Jeremy, which is okay. Councilor Cooper, President Cooper, may I jump over to Jeremy?
let's just go through.
Let Julie stay, and I'll go. I'll
Yeah.
take her when it's okay. Thank you, Julie. That's what I wanted to ask. Thank
Okay, you're welcome.
Counselor DeSimone.
Thank you, President Cooper. Hi, Julie.
Hello.
A couple of questions. I know you and I have gone back and forth via email, and I thank you for your answers to my rather lengthy and perhaps somewhat obvious questions on occasion. But a couple of things. We went back and forth about the small business exemption, and I understand your reasoning. Can you explain to the council and residents who may be listening why that is an option that we might not want to pursue at this time, if you deem it worthy to do so? But I want people to know that we're considering at least, and why we're not ultimately probably going to do it.
Right. And so I did run a preliminary estimate of the small commercial exemption. I believe it impacted, I don't have the numbers right here in front of me. I'm at home. Usually I try to be in the office, but I think it impacted about 84 properties. The way the small commercial exemption works is there is a list that's sent out of small employers from the Division of Unemployment Assistance. They need to report to them, and they report to us. From that list, you need to cull out properties that are only under $1 million of value. Like I said, from that, it would benefit about 84 properties. On the other hand, you have to consider that a lot of the small businesses that qualify, those properties are not owned by the small business. So the exemption would go to the owner of the building, not to the small business. And whether or not that gets passed down to that small business, we have no way of knowing. So it's a very tedious process. Like I said, I did run just some preliminary numbers. And that's what I came up with. And I think, I wish I had it right here in front of me.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. I think it was about an average $200 savings per year off the top of my head, to those small businesses, to those small commercial properties that would qualify. So,
Thank you. President Cooper, may I follow up with a couple more questions?
Sure.
Julie, at what point, is there a tipping point by which, like, just for future consideration, I think this is something that hopefully as we get more small businesses in the city, is this something you could add to your presentation or have in the back of your mind when the tipping point is, when the council should seriously consider that option? Could you put that on your radar?
I could add it, and I will talk to the administration about it, because as I was looking more into it, I believe it's a request that needs to come from the mayor to the council to consider. But I definitely would do that, and I will speak to the mayor about it.
All right, and relatedly, one more question. Perhaps this is also from the administration. Payment in lieu of taxes. You and I went back and forth about the value of the exempt property in the city, nonprofits, et cetera. Pilots, is that an issue that it also originates from the administration, or does your office have a position on that?
It depends what type of pilot you're talking about, but in general, no, it would come from the administration. I know I think we have 2 pilots in the city right now, one with another municipality, and I can't think off the top of my head who the other one is with, but that would start there and pursuing pilots. I know with things like solar energy and different things that are going to be coming up in the future, those are things that will be pursued.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you, President Cooper.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Julie from the council?
Mark, it's Jay.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Julie, thank you again for everything. Thank you for your accessibility over the last several weeks. And I know, I think just a clarifying point before I ask my question is, we got certification later this year through no fault of your office. It's just things are running a little slower across the Commonwealth right now. Is that related to COVID?
It may be partially related to COVID because the entire Department of Revenue is working from home. None of them are in the office. Also, there has been a big change of leadership within the Department of Revenue at the Bureau of Local Assessments and I believe at Bureau of Accounts. So I think all of that came into play, and it took longer. I know not just for us and not just for the assessing office in Attleboro, it's been taking longer all the way around, but we made it.
Yeah, even to get the free cash certified was longer than usual too. So, you know, I just thought that was important to note. The last question I have, if I may, President Cooper, is, Julie, what would you suggest? What do you think the right number is for that tax classification split?
So I would say, and obviously it's completely up to the council. It is your decision. I believe a 1.32 is a reasonable number. It falls in line with what I think has been the policy of the council in the past. It keeps the average residential bill, the percentage increase, kind of in line with the entire levy increase. And I think that's been the position of the council that they wanted to try to do that. And the 1.32 brings the average single family tax bill increase to 6.55%, which, you know, is lower than the entire levy increase, but is reasonable.
And it would also be a 23-cent decrease over the tax rate of the current 1.34.
Correct.
And
Correct.
if I can just ask another follow-up question, the tax rate is going to be lower when the evaluations are higher. Is that accurate?
That is correct. I was just going to say that as the assessed values go up, because you're pulling from a bigger pool, the tax rate goes down.
That is all I have. Thank you, President Cooper, and thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Any additional questions for City Assessor at this time?
I do, Council Holmes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So last year we stayed the same at 1.34, correct?
I believe it came down last year from 1.35 to 1.34.
Okay, I thought it stayed 1.34 for 2 years in a row. That we had voted that 2 years ago and then it stayed at that. So now you're suggesting that it goes to 1.32, which is a 6.55% increase for the residential tax rate.
It's for the average residential tax bill.
Okay.
Is the 6.55%. It's a decrease in the tax rate. So it's a reduction in the tax rate.
Okay,
I almost said no matter what you vote, but that's not true. But the tax rate is going to be lower because the values are higher. So even though the tax rate is going down, it's still an increase to the average single family tax bill because the average value is higher.
okay, so you're saying that last year we went from 1.35 to 1.34.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
President Cooper, can I say one?
Council Reynolds.
Okay, so Julie, I'm just going to throw this out here again to clarify.
Mhm.
So if we drop to 1.32, the average homeowner, again, let's go with 287 like it was last year. And I think the taxes were somewhere around $4,000 last year for somebody that was at 287. That property that was at 287 last year has now been assessed at, let's say, 350, approximately 350, let's say. So if it stayed at 1.34 and didn't drop to the 1.32, that $4,000 will now be what for that person?
So the average single family value last year was 332,276.
332, okay.
Yeah, this year's average value is 359,6. So at the 1.34, the increase would be $305.60 over last year, which is a 6.21% increase.
And then you add the school. That's not your problem, but I mean, then the school gets added on, so it's like 600 this year.
No, that the tax rate includes the debt exclusion for the school.
It does.
Yes.
Okay. So that would be 300 to them. Okay. I'm going to have to look at my numbers again, but so that would be for a house that's 350, let's say 359. Is that what you said, or 354? 359.
359.6.
Okay, and when, so they're still going to see an increase. If we went to 132, what would it be? If we,
I'm sorry.
if we didn't stay at 1.34 and went to 1.34, then it's going to be a larger increase than that. What would their payment be then?
If we went to the 1.32,
Yes,
so the increase would be $321.91, or a 6.55% increase.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Anybody else with any questions for the City Assessor?
President Cooper, Council Dolan.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. So with the new assessments, we have substantially more. So we have 78% of houses over 350, which is a huge portion of our city right now, paying 78% of the levy. And that includes the huge personal property increase that will be then shifted over to the resident.
That includes the 78% of the single family residential levy, not the entire levy, but properties over 350,000 are paying 78% of that single family residential levy.
Got it.
So Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one more, Council Cooper. If
Go
we,
ahead.
and again, Julie, I'm sorry, I came in late and I don't have my paperwork in front of me.
No, you're fine.
If we said no to the 1.32 and said no to the 1.34 and went the other direction, went up to 1.36,
Mhm.
what would their tax be?
So at 1.36, the average single-family tax bill will be $5,196.11, an increase of 5.66%.
Okay, so my suggestion, quite frankly, would be to keep going that way. That's my only suggestion for this part of it anyway. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions? Okay, Julie, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, counselors.
We'll be in touch. Any questions that come up at the committee level.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor?
President Cooper, Jack Lank is here to speak in favor.
Okay,
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for your time. We are very much in favor of Julie's proposal of going to the 1.32. In years past, I come up and tell you that the split tax rate, in our opinion, is very unfair because the businesses do not have to use a lot of the public services. They don't use the trash, et cetera. But I'm not going to bore you with all that. What I'm asking you to do is to take into consideration the challenges that these businesses have faced over the last 18 months. The supply chain issues, can't find the employees, reduced hours so they can't make as much money with their hours being open. The council has shown in the past, and they made promises years ago that they were going to try and level out the levy between the commercial and the the residential. And as we've seen, the boom in the residential properties has just been wild here in Attleboro. And I know that Julie has said the average home is worth $359, but if you look at any of those houses on Route 123, Pleasant Street, up into the Lindsay area, you're talking $600,000, $800,000 houses. And so that's where a lot of that is going to come from. So we'd just like to say we're very much in favor of the tax rate going to 1.32, and we would just appreciate the consideration of the council to look in favor of that. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for your time.
thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lang? Jack, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Okay, Councilor Delissio, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. That public hearing closed. And with that, I will move to the mayor's communication.
October 26th, 2021, dear municipal councilors. During the preparation of annual budgets, assessors across the Commonwealth provide budget officials with an estimate of new growth increase in the community's Proposition 2.5 levy limit, so that a preliminary limit can be calculated and a revenue estimate is established. However, boards of assessors are required to have final new growth figures approved each year by the Department of Revenue as part of setting the tax rate. I have been informed that the Board of Assessors has received approval by the Department of Revenue for a final new growth number of $1,349,057, which is $449,057 greater than the estimate carried in the fiscal 2022 budget. Therefore, I'm hereby requesting your honorable body approve a supplemental appropriation to the following accounts. $213,030 to school special education tuition, $160,050 to public works sidewalk construction. Details of this request are in a memorandum from Director of Budget Administration, Jeremy Stoll. Again, in order to properly reflect this measure of the fiscal year 2022 tax recapitulation, it is necessary to vote this matter prior to the submission of the fiscal 2022 tax rate.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
Sincerely, Paul Haroo, Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. I am going to try to switch to my computer instead of doing this. But if I can get back on, I will. If I can't, I will see you in a week.
President Cooper, did you want to do a roll call vote?
Yes, I was just making that comment only because the motion was seconded and it was time for comments. Any additional questions or comments before we adjourn? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
thank you. We are adjourned at 8. Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome, Mark. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And I would like to call budget appropriations to order at 7:38. I asked Jeremy to spend some time with us tonight. He's going to talk a little bit about opera. He's going to talk a little bit about free cash. But before we do, I have 3 motions that I want to bring out. So well, actually 2 motions, as a matter of fact. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to transfer $4,724.43 from account 112410000-578300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 130010000-562200 education Bristol Agricultural High School debt. The funds related to Bristol County Agricultural High School debt service.
Second.
Thank you, Council Cobus and Vice President Jackson. It was kind of a tyrant. Yeah, so we talked about this actually last week when we voted the 119 or so. We knew that there might be a supplemental appropriation coming down, and that is this appropriation. That's all I have on that. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? Council Cobus.
With Jeremy here, can you talk a little bit about sort of the requirement for us to pay for the improvements to Bristol County Agricultural High School and what that looks like long-term overall, what the total amount is that we'll be roughly paying?
Yeah, certainly. So Bristol County did a project with the MSBA and went long-term on, I think, something like $51 or $52 million worth of debt for their portion of the project. They have a debt service schedule for the life of the bonds. And each year they divide the debt service by the number of students enrolled to get a per student allocation. And then they go to each constituent municipality, multiply that per student by the number of students they have enrolled. And that's the assessment given to that municipality each year. I have a tentative schedule that I'd be happy to share through Virginia, through all of you, but not knowing what our individual student count's going to be and not knowing what the total student count's going to be, I can't quite say each year what the assessment's going to be, but instead what I'll do, and this was the first years and we weren't quite prepared for it from the get-go. So next year in the FY23 budget, there will be this preliminary estimate, which you got a few weeks ago, that will be in the budget. And then when we need to clean it up for the second payment that comes in March, because we pay it half in October, half in March, when we need to clean it up well in advance of the second payment, that'll be akin to what we're doing right now, kind of a small dollar amount.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Jeremy, along those lines where it's based on enrollment numbers. So right now I think there's roughly 20
Yes,
students
20.
enrolled there. So say next school year drops to 15. Will we see that reflected in what we send to Bristol Aggie?
Yes, so if our enrollment drops by 25%
Yep.
and Bristol County Aggie's overall enrollment drops by less than 25%, yes, our portion that we pay of debt service will be less.
Perfect. I just thought that's an important point to call out.
Counselor Delicio?
Yes, Counselor Reynolds.
So I know you're going to probably close your meeting out in a second here, and I know you were on when I was talking about the 2.5 question to Julie. I was wondering if you would mind me just speaking to, not an answer tonight because it's different than the assessor thing, but may I ask Jeremy to please put together an answer for me on that? What would be the difference? Or can I send you an email with the question and you will send it on to Jeremy?
Yeah, you could actually, if you wanted to, let me finish up this piece of business, take the vote, and then
That'd be great. Thank
feel
you.
free to ask Jeremy if, and however he decides best to handle it.
That's
I'll
great.
leave that to his judgment. Great.
Thank you, Counselor.
No, thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns on the Bristol Aggie vote? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Reynolds, I'm going to do my last piece of business and then I'll open it up to you to talk to Jeremy if that's suitable
Thank
for you. All right, a little bit of reading in this one, and then Jeremy, I'm going to ask you for, if you don't mind, just to kind of add your thoughts on this. This is the 1.1 million going over to the schools. So from the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to appropriate $1,179,633 of available free cash from account 1000-359,000 undesignated fund balance free cash, general government, to the accounts listed below. C 4120070 heating, 521012 heat gas, amount 28,000. C 4130070 utility, 521020 power, 28,000. D 4130070 Hill Roberts, 521020 power, 80,000. E 4130070 Hyman 70 Hyman Fine, 521020 power, 76,000. F 4130070 Studley, 521020 power, 68,000. G 4130070 Willett, 521020 power, 54,000. H 4130070 Thatcher, 521020 power, 105,000. I 4130070 Brennan, 521020 power, 115,000. J 4130070 Coelho, 521020 power, 135,000. K 4130070 Wamsutta, 521020 power, 100,000. L 4130070 AHS, 521020 power, $310,633. A 4220070 administration, 530500 maintenance of buildings, 25,000. A 52600 A0 administration, 574010 insurance, 55,000, for a total of $1,179,633.
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Jackson. Jeremy, do you want to just talk a little bit about what this is?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the opportunity. So if you'll recall, during the development of the fiscal 22 budget, the school section on page 8 of the budget, we were using a proposal from the governor's proposed budget, which allowed us to use up to 75% of our ESSER 2, which is the elementary, secondary education federal money from the CARES Act directly given to schools. I forget what the acronym stands for, but we were allowed to use up to 75% of that allocation to cover the increase in our required minimum local contribution between fiscal 21 and fiscal 22. We didn't have a ton of guidance from the state. We had a workbook that showed us how to get to that number, but we didn't have the accounting behind it. So The schools depressed their budget by that $1.179 million, which was 75% of their ESSER 2 funding. They did so by decreasing those individual accounts that Jay had just read, that Councilor Lucio just read. So the idea would have been, once we figured out a mechanism from the state to use ESSER funding to do that, that's how we would fund that. And then the final budget that was signed by the state revoked that provision that allowed us to do that. So the school was left with a $1.179 million hole in their level service budget. Second piece of that is when we have a surplus in net school spending accounts from the prior fiscal year. It's been recent practice to take those surpluses dollar for dollar and do an appropriation into the school department in the following year. You know, they saved that money last year, they get used money the next year. When there's been savings in not net school spending, such as transportation, the city has typically kept that on its side for free cash available for municipal use. This year, the school department had a turn back on net school spending of approximately $800,000 and a turn back on non-net school spending of approximately $800,000, both of which are extremely large levels. We didn't appropriate, we're not requesting right now to appropriate that entire 1.6 and change back to the school department, because we would have typically kept that second 800,000 on the city side. But we are appropriating 1.1, we're asking to appropriate 1.179 to fill that ESSER 2 hole. And then additionally, in my memo about new growth, which was sent down tonight, are also asking for half of new growth in between the number we anticipated and the number that's been certified. So this is plugging a hole that was artificially, plugging a hole in the budget that was artificially deflated by the school department as a result of this change in provisions from the state budget.
A hole that we knew we needed to plug.
Right.
Great. All right. Thank you for that. You could certainly articulate that better than I could have, so I appreciate that. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns on this matter? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve a supplemental appropriation of $186,825 to account 1300-1000-592044 Education AHS issue for interest for fiscal 22 debt service relating to the Attleboro High School.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Todd, for that. You were just below the line, VP Jackson. Todd just beat you. So this is essentially, there was an evaluation of cash flow on the, and Jeremy, keep me honest on this, an evaluation of the cash flow for the school project, and this interest payment is for the last really sizable payment that we have to make, which is $13 million, I believe. The administration and Deb and Laura looked at it and said, hey, what do we do? Do we wait 6 months when it's actually due, or do we try to go out now while rates are low and get a better rate? They were able to go out, get a better rate, and that's why we're doing it now a little early, but let's take that interest, let's pay it off now while the rates are good. Jeremy, anything I missed or anything you'd want to add?
Yeah, we kind of, not last minute, but within the few weeks before issue sized down. We had initially thought 15 million. We brought it down to 13 million. We thought that the risk in borrowing too much money and having to pay interest on it versus the risk of our last borrowing needing to be a little bit bigger. We wanted to go with the latter, so we weren't paying interest on money that when we didn't have to. So we actually sized it down a little bit, and then we got what was called a premium on top. So the actual principal we're borrowing is 12 million and change, because our bonds were received so well that people are paying us to take them on top of the par value. So it was a good move. I agreed with our financial advisor Laura and Deb in this approach.
Perfect. Councilor Corbis.
Was that change taken into account when figuring out roughly what our debt service, the debt exclusion amount would be for this year's levy limit? I think it's listed at like 6 million. Will that change?
So the debt exclusion's outside the limit, but the reason you got this so late in the process was that we sold the bonds on October 18th. And then you got the memo on the 19th. So the levy that the tax rate that's set that includes this debt exclusion includes this exact interest only payment. The sizing of it, if we had gone larger, this would have been slightly larger now. So yeah, it has an impact on the rate, but what's being set now is specifically for this issue.
Perfect. Thank you.
Question. Thank you, John. All right. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, before I adjourn, I have asked Jeremy to come down and discuss the American Rescue Plan Act. As you can see, I held the measure for the $9,557,617, just because this is the first time that we've gotten this sort of a grant, and there's still some questions that I think we all have. So before we bring it out of committee, I just wanted to have Jeremy talk a little bit about what can it be used for, what can it be used for, what's the administration's plan. But before we get back to Jeremy, I don't want to bring it out right now until we have some of the questions answered. So some of the questions that I'm looking at is, why are we being asked to expend it all in such a broad stroke? I've never seen a grant be expended like this where the intended use hasn't been prescribed. I want to find out, is that something that that when there's a project, when there's something, the funds need to be expended, does the administration have to have it all at one point? What's the check and balance that we have? Because I feel that the council should have line of sight into how that 9.5 million is expended. I think the council should have line of sight into each purchase request. So I've talked to Deb Gould and I've talked to Jeremy. I let Jeremy know right where we were coming at tonight, and she's going to look into that with me, for me rather, and get back to me. This all has to do with DOR, and there's still, what is it, 257 pages of guidance on what it can and can't be used for. So we just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence as a body. And then I'd like to see the plan in the hands of the council so we can digest it and we can be able to, properly support things, ask questions, raise concerns. So those are just some of the reasons why I'm not going to be bringing that motion in front of the committee tonight. I think by asking these questions, it lets the taxpayers know that this council is taking our responsibility of providing those checks and balances seriously, and we're intended as they were intended by having a legislative body and an executive body. I think this helps the council administration ensure we're on the same page with what could really be a once-in-a-lifetime infusion. So that's my soapbox for this evening on this. But Jeremy, I'll turn the floor back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. I appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen. I have prepared a kind of a high-level budget summary document. So if you just bear with me for 1 sec. All right, can you see my Excel screen for the budget? All right, awesome. So let me walk you through a little bit here. So this first thing, total award. So our award from the federal government is that $9.55 million. Because we are an entitlement community, we receive CDBG funds through HUD. That means we got half of our money right away, right up front, and we have different reporting requirements as a result. So we have in the bank and are sitting on right now $4.77 million of ARPA funds. We have set up, I guess this didn't be in here for you, but we set up the fund already, and that's why we're holding them. Bristol County, they have received an allocation, 119 million or so. And there was a vote of the county commissioners a few weeks ago that they are going to take 10% off the top for administrative and county projects, and then allocate the rest on a per capita basis to the constituent municipalities. The meeting that all the budget folks went to, pretty much every person there in attendance said, just allocate it per capita and let us do what we want with it. Don't make us apply to individual programs. They heard that loud and clear. So I've reached out to Bristol County a number of times. We don't have the mechanism on how we're getting that yet. Probably in 2 tranches as well, at least, because they don't have all their money either. But if you just use the latest census figures, we should be getting somewhere around 7.9 million. So our total award, which these will have to be accounted for separately, reported on separately as a subrecipient versus a recipient. This will be one of the many times I harp on how much added work this is going to be. That our total award is about $17.5 million. So there are 5 broad categories that you can spend funds on. The first is public health, and then here's the 12 subcategories in it. So these are not set in stone by any stretch. This is us saying we think we're going to have some more COVID-related costs after the CARES Act expires at the end of December. So whether we have increased vaccination efforts, some more testing, these numbers are also, we don't have to submit a budgetary document to the federal government. We submit an expenditure document to the federal government. So if we want to flip the 30 and the 10, that can all happen internally without having to go through a million things at the federal government, at the federal level, like you do with a number of other federal grants. So the biggest one we see here, we have a $2 million number. So this is HVAC improvements. So this is increasing ventilation. This is increasing sanitation in the HVAC systems, whether it's MERV filters, whether it's HEPA, whether it's just increased airflow to get fresh air into buildings at particular times. So we've got 2 million here. I will say with a large caveat as something moving around here, that we are exploring whether ARPA money can be used for our trained performance contract, as I believe Councilor Deluzio asked at the last public hearing for the loan authorization. So we've asked that we don't move forward with the loan authorization until we find out rules about supplanting local monies with federal money, because we wouldn't want to forego that opportunity. So this number may change, and we may put our trained performance contract as it relates to HVAC into here as well. And then just some other costs. So we have about $2 million slated for public health. And I have a running total here of our 17.5 million whittling away per category. This is the negative economic impact category. So this one's pretty broad in a number of ways. So this is where we'll see our rent, mortgage, and utility aid. We're modeling this after the CDBG program, which we have some in-house. So I'm in the last stages of developing an RFP. Because like I said, my office is not set up to start accepting applications for people and rental assistance. So we are putting together an RFP for community partners, not-for-profits that are set up more for this. And we set the parameters, and we say, this is the cap per household, this is the income limits, this is the, the documentation required. And we set up all of those, but then we say to not-for-profits, you administer this program for us. We'll grant you the money plus your administrative fee to get the money into people's hands. Small business economic assistance. We have $500,000 here. I don't have great detail on how we're going to approach those programs. I've had some preliminary conversations with Economic Development Director Catherine Fierick and the mayor. So as we kind of learn about those, we'll definitely, as we learn about what's eligible in these and how we can deliver that money, we'll keep council abreast. This is services to disproportionately impacted communities. So QCT is a qualified census tract. There's only one in the city. It's around the public library. So what these categories, there's a large burden of proof on key performance indicators and on which particular city demographics that the funds can be spent on. So there's a big lift, a big reporting lift here. And we have to be very careful on how we spend these funds because anything that we spend federal money on and then it gets kicked back in an audit by the time they get around to checking on us in 3 or 4 years, then it's going to be on the city to pay the federal government back for any ineligible expenses. So that's why we're so meticulous through our federal grant programs. So we're looking at some homeless community assistance. other social determinants of health. So that seemed like a broad category where we're also going to go out for an RFP and see what great ideas our community partners have for something like that. And then on social determinants of health for community and domestic violence. So how we can, these are issues that were exacerbated by the pandemic. And we think that we can use this kind of once in a lifetime opportunity to invest in something that otherwise the city itself isn't necessarily in as much as other spaces. Premium pay, we are not exploring that category. The logistics of it are wild and the equity issues abound. It's for public and private sector workers. It's an hourly forward-looking premium. We could sap up all of our money right away, and the administration didn't think that was the way to go. I couldn't design an equitable program to be able to administer that. Here's where we spend the meat of our money. So the fifth category, which as the bill is written, doesn't have a ton tied to COVID. It is infrastructure. So it's water, wastewater, and broadband, municipal broadband infrastructure. The biggest thing we want to do here, I'm going to hop around a little bit, drinking water treatment. So you have seen in the news, you have seen locally, statewide, nationally about PFAS and forever chemicals. PFAS and forever chemicals in water supply. We have that problem here in Attleboro. We are better situated than a number of communities, most communities across the state, and the state has much stricter requirements than the federal government does, but it's still remediation that we need to do. So we have a short-term solution. We just got a proposal to use these ARPA funds, actually, just got a proposal in the few $100,000s to engineer a short-term solution. And then that'll get us 1 to 2 years, and we want to engineer the long-term solution after that. So we're going to be looking at PFAS remediation of $15, $16, $17 million, and to put that kind of debt on the water ratepayer would be unsustainable. You would see, 60-cent increases in the rate to be able to pay for the debt service for the next 30 years. So we're looking to use a bulk of the money here to pay for PFAS remediation, which we've checked 6 ways to Sunday that is eligible under the program. And I think that's an important public health approach that we're taking, although not COVID related. There's a few other water things that aren't quite PFAS related at the treatment. It's more in the distribution. So that's why that 11 million that we have slated for this split up. Wastewater, we have a number of projects, but none of them as transformative as PFAS. We need to be kind of eyeing a new wastewater treatment facility within the next number of years, but that falls outside the time and the eligibility scope of this project or of this grant. And then the mayor is committed to looking into municipal broadband. So we want to do some sort of feasibility that's not going to cost $2 million, but some sort of feasibility, and then seed money to get a municipal broadband program off the ground. And what that looks like, I can't tell you. I don't know enough about broadband to begin with, wired, wireless, I don't know. There are a few towns in Massachusetts, specifically Chicopee, that instituted a successful municipal broadband, but it would function like the water and wastewater enterprise system. So you would have the ratepayers would be citizens of Attleboro getting internet, and then we would use that money that we get in as rate to both keep the program sustained, and then the rate would also include money to expand into other portions of the city. So this is nascent stages, as is everything here, because we don't have the funds set up or the RFPs written or anything like that. But I think it would be an excellent service and an excellent alternative to the current monopoly, even if we start small. Revenue replacement, we, City Auditor Deb Gould and I went through the worksheet that the federal government provides for this on what counts as ordinary revenue, what doesn't count, and then applying growth factors across 4 historical years there, and then looking forward, doing calendar years versus fiscal year, and every way we looked at it, under their calculations, we did not suffer revenue loss during COVID. And I think that had to do with a number of new revenue sources that we took on as a city. But we report at the ends of calendar years 2021, 22, and 23, I believe. And then if you do experience revenue loss in any of those periods, you can use that amount for any lawful municipal purpose. So then the funds become really fungible. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that, but right now that's not us. And then administrative and other, this 73 is kind of just hanging out here. There will be some sort of administrative expense, some sort of contracted help in terms of reporting, auditing, extra hands on deck, something, because as the CARES Act showed, the rules change all the time. And it's been a massive lift from the accounting office, and the auditor and her team have done an excellent job. And then this is, 5 times larger than that. And we don't have the state to lean on like we did for CARES. So there'll be something down there. I just don't quite know here. So that's the 10,000 foot overview. These are all the eligible categories. I'd be happy to share. I will share this with you all and be happy to take any questions you have on it.
Yeah, Jeremy, thank you for this. I really appreciate it. I like a lot of what I see here. I like the format you put this in. I think it helps to explain it. But yeah, I would love to get this in all the council's hands so they have the opportunity to go through it. And then we can have you back and maybe answer some of the additional questions that might come from it, or would it be easier if I put them in an email?
It's typically easier for me to prepare and get you specific answers if I get them in an email and get to research it a little bit, and then I can come and talk through them and talk through any follow-ups. But if you give me stuff ahead of time, I could make it a bit better of a discussion.
Yeah, that makes sense. So to my fellow councilors, the full council, if you have questions, once Jeremy gets this out, send the questions to me through Virginia, and we'll get them to Jeremy, and we'll get them answered, and we'll have Jeremy come back. Any questions on this? Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, Councilor Delacio. First of all, thank you for inviting Jeremy. I think this is an important and really exciting to see some of the stuff. And I have other detailed questions, which I'll forward. But my first question is this, Jeremy, and maybe it's more directed to the mayor, but I've seen other municipalities who are taking a more community-wide approach to eliciting suggestions for the use of these funds. With whom are you and the mayor, who is the administration working with to come up with ideas for these projects?
Yeah, we've met with a number of not-for-profits on a kind of informal basis that we know are doing some of the work that we wanted to do. We've met with department heads. We had some sort of kind of steering commission between both accounting, myself, schools, the enterprise funds, public safety to a lesser extent. So we've spoken a lot with budget officials and elected officials in other communities and how they're trying to approach things. We've gone to webinars by the MMA and the National League of Cities and the State Office of Administration and Finance. So we've taken in quite a bit of information, and that's not to say that we couldn't do more, kind of listening session sort of thing. But once we saw the problem that this was all kind of driven by PFAS, and once we saw the problem that posed and the clear eligibility that had under this program, and the ability to keep that debt off of water ratepayers, which is a majority of the city, for 30 years. That was our focus, and we built from there.
All right. If I may, Councilor, just to follow up, I'm super excited about the PFAS, and I get that the money's going for that purpose, but I would respectfully suggest perhaps this, like you said, or Councilor said, this is once in a lifetime opportunity here. I think it would be really important and valuable and meaningful to at least welcome comments and suggestions from the wider community, because these funds are for everybody and they're to benefit all. So I would respectfully suggest that you float some of these ideas out and get some feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. So you had mentioned earlier a federal audit. Have you ever personally been through a federal audit before?
No.
Okay. So the way that, going off of Councilor DeSimone's comments, this is basically like, they're kind of saying whatever you want this to be, this could potentially be. And they're hoping that we understand our community and that we're going to put the funds in the right place. So I think that we need to be forward thinking in terms of, and so it sounds like with the water we are, but I saw tons of mental health and education that were just skipped over. So it is a little bit like we have to just make sure that we're not missing something. And this is an opportunity to kind of put the funds in the right place. So I guess I would just like that to be considered.
Definitely. And on the education piece, the reason that was kind of backburnered for this grant is because the schools have quite a bit of more federal money than they've ever had through ESSERs 1, 2, and 3. They don't have the money where it needs to be for net school spending through Chapter 70, which was underfunded by the state, but they have tons of restricted COVID funding. As the ESSER program expanded and the eligibility expanded, we're hopeful that a lot of the categories that you see here in education can be tackled with the federal money on the school side. But it's a point well taken on mental health, and I hope that our RFPs are written broad enough to get some social service organizations that do that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Council Holmes, thanks for that question. And I think you're really kind of illustrating part of why I don't want to rush to bring this out right away. I think, the council should have some semblance of the proverbial seat at the table. So thank you for that. Council Waterman, did you have your hand up at one point? And then
Yes, I did. Thank you. Jeremy, is there any deadline for the expenditure of these funds?
They need to be committed by the end of calendar year 2024 and spent by 2026. I think, don't quote me on that. I'll look it up, but I think that's the timeline.
That's good. Thanks.
Council Dolan and then Council Cobus.
Thank you. First, Council Delicio, thank you for having Jeremy here. I think this is extremely useful. And, I like most of everything that's on that list, especially the water. I think this is like to have all this money, this is like a once in a lifetime chance that we can't blow for infrastructure that could cost us in the future. And we don't want to put that on the ratepayer. Like you said, that would be enormous. And I think this is our shot to do it right. And, to Councilor DeSimone's point, for everybody, this is for everybody. The water is benefits every single person in the city. So, and again, I don't know what it was titled, but you had something there regarding domestic violence. It might have been different language, which has increased. So I like that part, but especially with the water and any capital improvements that we can take advantage of this now would be huge. So thank you for explaining this, and I'd love to have a copy of that. And thanks for being here. Thanks, Jay.
You're welcome. Council Cobus.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. I agree with everything Councilor Dolan said. This is a great opportunity, and Jeremy, I very much appreciate you going through it all with us. The one question I had, I know we've been talking a lot about a public safety building and needing to get the police out of where they currently are. Was there any consideration about if these funds could be spent on a new public safety building?
So broadly speaking, when we got the first bit of guidance and it was just the high level 5 categories, we're like, oh man, this is going to be great. We can spend this on, whatever. And then as we got the Treasury's interim final rule, and then through their final rule, and then, so my budget document is based upon the reporting document that we have. So that's why these categories are in these categories, because these are the ones that we have to report to the federal government. So once we got this sort of level of granular detail, something for construction of a new public safety kind of doesn't fall in here. So pieces of it would. So, the incremental cost of the investments that, respond to the transmission of COVID or airborne diseases. Those incremental things definitely would be, and perhaps a portion of the HVAC in its whole would be. But the big costs wouldn't.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Jeremy, following up on that, and I'll get to Council Blair in 1 second. Following up on that, is it possible to use a portion of that for the feasibility study for the public safety complex? Because I think when you're talking about kind of taking some of the environmental stuff, how is it spread? Is it airborne? And again, it's just me taking a shot in the dark, but I don't know if there's an avenue for that.
My first inclination is no, but I'll look a little bit more into it.
I appreciate that. All right, Council Blair. You're muted, sir.
Jeremy, thanks for coming down tonight. I know I'm not easy with praise, but I think the water portion of this makes sense. The amount of money we would save in interest alone is mind-boggling if we're looking at spending 12, 14, 17 million dollars on this project. Would save the average person an average tremendous amount of money over 30 years. So that is foremost in my mind, is to spend it well, spend it on something that's gonna last. And the water department and the new plant that they need in order to get in compliance and stay in compliance is ultra important to all the citizens in Attleboro. I think it touches every home and it's well spent. So Jeremy, that piece of that proposal is astronomical. I think it's perfect and I wholly support it myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Council Blair. So, Jeremy, thanks for coming down and talking about the ARPA funds. But on top of the ARPA, we have $13.9 million of free cash. And Jeremy's going to discuss what the administration's plan is for that money. But like ARPA, this could very well be a one-time infusion. And I think it's vital that we're planning for future events, such as an economic downturn, a COVID resurgence, or an economic downturn due to a COVID resurgence. And I think we need to see what position are we going to be in when the dust from COVID finally settles. Speaking with Deb Gould a couple times today, she shared some of her concerns with me. And before I recognize Jeremy again, just want to go over that. And we've seen that the increased costs of everything has gone up. Inflation is really impacting businesses across the area, which will impact our ability to get things done. The reluctance of vendors to provide quotes or firm pricing for an extended period of time. So purchasing's indicated that some items are going to have escalation clauses built into the specs. So fewer vendors are willing to renew at old prices, and new bids very well might be needed. The impact of these increased costs are going to impact both fiscal 22 and future budgets. So, we want to look at it when we talk about free cash. Will free cash be needed in the future to maintain services? There's a new revenue source of the cannabis that's already built into the fiscal 22 and future budget. So the cannabis excise tax also is a component of the municipal revenue growth factor, and that could impact the calculation of Chapter 70 funds. We had turnbacks from the school department at the end of fiscal 21, which was really unusual, and it's very unlikely that'll happen again. So what concerns me is once the moratorium, I'm going to turn my camera off because I'm getting, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm getting messages on the screen. So with the lifting of moratorium on evictions, it could have severe fiscal implications to us here in the city, especially relating to McKinney-Vento. So I think you have less interest income inspected in fiscal 22, which has been a contributing factor to free cash in recent years. So when we look at the influx of this 13.9 million, which is, I think it's probably a safe bet to say it's the biggest in the history of the city. I know in my 8 years on the council, I've never seen it this big. It's usually around 2.5, 3 million. There's a lot of factors that went into it, and Jeremy's going to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to give my own thoughts on it after Jeremy's done. So Jeremy, welcome back.
All right, thanks again. And once again, I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to go through a couple of the things that Councilor Delicio just talked about as to what kind of made this so exceptional. $1 million surplus in motor vehicle excise tax over budget. You all know how difficult it is to buy a new car right now, so we don't expect our tax rolls to outpace budget by $1 million in fiscal 22 like they did in fiscal 21. $1.1 million in unbudgeted cannabis revenue. That was both tax and host community agreement. We budgeted $800,000 for both of those in the fiscal 22 budget. So if you'll recall, the $800,000 in the local option sales tax is just part of the local receipts and goes to balancing the budget, whereas the $800,000 in the host community agreement is specifically called out in the citywide budget as a reserve for cannabis impact fee. So we're not going to touch that money, and we're not going to request a transfer out of that line into where we want it until we actually get the host impact fee in and we know what that number is. Meals tax, we were super conservative when we started the year. We initially budgeted $320,000, and during the tax recap, we upped it to $375,000 for fiscal 21, and we ended up taking in $796,000. Just outperformed every expectation we had for the restaurant industry in fiscal 21. So now back in the fiscal 22 budget, we're back to 700,000, and we balanced the budget on 700,000. So even if we repeat last year's numbers, that's going to be a $96,000 surplus, not a 396. I can't do the math right now. Almost $400,000 surplus.
It's okay.
I'm useless when I'm out of Excel. I'm sorry. Across the board, we're conservative in our revenue approaches. I think we've continued to be as conservative, not quite as much in some places, but still less than we expect. As Councilor Dillsley had said, we've had large interest on investments that we since spent down. We don't have the same amount of cash in the bank as from our high school issues. And then we had $3.7 million that was left over from our previous certification at 6/30/21. That is part of this 13.9. On the expense side, we had over $2 million in city side departmental turnbacks. So we had spending that was still slowed down. We weren't traveling, we weren't going places, we weren't needing as much, weren't doing as much. People were working from home, consuming kind of things on their own. And there was significant turnover in a number of departments. As you'll recall from prior discussions, there were significant savings in the veterans benefits line from the veteran service officers because this program, the Chapter 115, is kind of last in the batting order, as Ben Quell, the veterans agent, likes to say. And so since so many federal programs were beefed up ahead of us, we had a number of savings in the program and that we don't expect to see again as those federal programs go away. And the $1.6 million turn back from the schools is, as I said before, exceptionally large, about split half and half between net school spending and non-net school spending. We wouldn't expect, non-net school spending is essentially transportation, and we wouldn't expect to see that again, at least not to those levels. So those are some of the outliers that I wouldn't expect to see in fiscal 22. So let's talk a little bit about the plan and where we're at. So two things have already been sent down to the council for, asking for an appropriation for the schools, which we just talked about earlier, and for the gunshot detection system. So if you'll recall, we received about $584,000 in host community agreement from the recreational cannabis store in town for their operations during calendar year 2020. Those monies were not budgeted, so we couldn't spend them, and they fell through to free cash, and they're now available. And the mayor has committed publicly a number of times to a gunshot detection system. So we went out to bid. There was an article in the Chronicle recently about it, but we went out to bid, and we're on the street for about a month. And this was the low bidder and with the system we prescribed and unanimously recommended by the evaluation committee. So those two have already been sent down. As we go through here, again, a lot of these are similar to the ARPA budget in that they're kind of round numbers. So we have our 13.9 up here, and here's our running total after the project's over. So DPW, this is to supplement chapter 90 to do roads and sidewalks, Reed Street and Bishop Street, do new sidewalks. $1 million for the Thatcher Street, Rathburn Willard traffic light, which is desperately needed before the north-south connector at Rathburn Willard opens up. We're looking at a feasibility study. This is listed in descending order, expense order. We're looking at a feasibility study for the Council on Aging. I know Director Tucker came and spoke with you previously. So we would love to be able to use $1 million to put in a down payment into a fund for a new building, land acquisition, rehab of a new building, wherever feasibility kind of drives us, but just reduce our future bonding necessity. Same thing for City Hall. Needs an envelope project, needs a roof, it's leaking, interior paint's chipping off. The building needs preventive maintenance and addressing deferred maintenance. The schools had asked for a number of projects. We fit a few into our plan here about flooring replacement, about some parking lot projects. I'm not going to go through all of this right now because I'm going to send it all to you. And unlike how we talked about ARPA just a minute ago, each one of these is going to come to you in a memo requesting your appropriation from free cash. So you will see this again. You will talk to each department again. You'll talk to me as many times as you want. So I'm not going to go through. I just wanted to go through the kind of $500,000 and up ones. The two that all right, now I'm going to go through. So additional contribution to stabilization, $500,000. This is on top of the $300,000 that we have in the fiscal 22 budgets. That would be a yearly contribution of $800,000. This we've been hanging on to, this fire self-contained breathing apparatus gear. That was part of the 3.7 that was rolled over. We've been saving up $500,000, $500,000 because the chief had communicated a long time ago we were going to need this. So rather than bond for $500,000, we've been rolling this over. And this AHS project, if you recall, the city had publicly committed to a $1.2 million free cash contribution to reduce the amount necessary to be bonded and put on the tax rate. So each year this will be year 3 that we transfer $400,000 into stabilization and then use that 1.2 from stabilization to fulfill that promise. And then we see some trucks, some additional special education stabilization, so we don't have to get, so it won't need to be in the budget next year. We'll be at $1 million and we won't have to request anything else. Some electrification, increase OPEB, some small improvements, feasibility study, that sort of thing. Like I said, I'll share this with you. This is not written in stone. We may have, something that crops up that takes precedent. We may get better numbers on something. We may reprioritize, but this is our goal right now.
All right. Before I open up for questions, thanks, Jeremy. I've got some concerns, to be quite honest. We all know inflation is crippling the supply chain and the economy in general right now. We've seen certain federal grants, FEMA and CARES, for instance, the guidelines and the rules have changed several times. Possibilities exist of the rules or guidelines to maybe ARPA or other programs that could still change. That being said, we want to ensure, in my estimation, that we're planning for when the dust from COVID settles, and in the event that we need to fund fiscal 23 or future budgets with some of this money in order to ensure we have a balanced budget. I think to ensure the city isn't in a situation where the administration and council are going to go through the budget process, scrutinizing which city services we may have to cut. The reality is we're not going to see free cash like this again in our lifetime. We've always had anywhere from $2 to $3 million in free cash certified. And I think that speaks to the fiscal prudence of this mayor, this administration, as well as his predecessor. And that does need to be recognized. But I think the message from this council needs to be, let's wait. Let's not rush to spend. let's plan for the future, and let's plan for the future now. I'm suggesting we send a resolution from the council to the administration with a percentage or a dollar amount that we want to see in the stabilization, so we can plan for the city's fiscal future. Not only does it help us plan for the proverbial rainy day, and it has been raining since March of 2020, it helps us with our bond rating with S&P. So in my estimation, I really think we should be putting and talking about putting a large portion of this money into stabilization account. It doesn't mean that these projects can't be done. It just means that there's going to be a better conversation. That means that it'll take a 2/3 vote in order to get some of these done. And I think that's important in these times. I think we need to plan, and we need to be able to look at things, what's a nice to have, what's a need to have. There are other communities, I believe Taunton's one of them, where they will put in 100% of their free cash in stabilization, and it's there if we need it. I just think that COVID has taught us so much that you have to be ready to plan for the unplanned. This isn't to be an obstructionist. This isn't to stand in the way of any of these projects, but it is to say, let's take an opportunity we have here and save and protect the taxpayer. You know, and I think that while we're talking about free cash, Council Reynolds, I'll recognize you to ask Jeremy the question you had regarding the 2.5, and then I'll recognize Councilor Blair. Sarah, you might be on mute. Okay.
Okay. Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know that I know Proposition 2.5 to some degree, but as I said earlier, every year I have to rethink it and re-educate myself over the levy. So I'm asking you the question, since we don't have to always go to 2.5, everybody does, but it's not mandated. Why would we?
Yeah, it's a reasonable question, but kind of that time has passed. So when the administration presents a budget to the municipal council, you vote the appropriations, and then we have to fund them. So the way I'm just going to use $100 to do the analogy. If we have $100 and $10 of it comes from local receipts and $40 of it comes from the state, then we need to raise $50. So we say to the assessors, the Board of Assessors, this is what needs to be raised on the levy. And then a tax rate gets set from that. And then we have a levy limit, which goes back to the beginnings of Prop 2.5, when the levy increases 2.5% each year, exclusive of new growth. So our levy limit, if we have to raise $50, our levy limit may be $75 because of years where we didn't raise all the way up. But the time to say let's not raise 2.5% is when we pass the budget, or when we present a budget and you pass the budget with appropriations that are based upon assumptions on local receipts, free cash, state aid, that sort of thing. So the way we would not raise 2.5%, because that's what the budget is based upon, is either increase our local receipt expectations and put that into the, we have to justify that with the state or our tax rate won't get certified. And I'm not advocating changing any of our local receipt assumptions, or increase the amount of free cash that we use to balance the budget. I believe we used $834,000, but to use free cash here to lower what needs to be raised on the levy would be using these extraordinary one-time revenues to pay for recurring expenditures within the operating budget. So I wouldn't send anything down to you that requested us to do that. And then to kind of preempt a question, if we don't raise the limit in a single year, that it doesn't, you lose the revenue that year, but that capacity doesn't go away. It would just be, we could raise even further the next year. That capacity remains. I haven't had any experience with that.
I'm sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
I was just wrapping up to say I haven't had experience that in my 4 or 5 budgets put together in the state of Massachusetts. We've been at the limit each time, so I haven't dealt with unused levy.
Okay, so no, I've never seen it done either. But I know that it can be done because they say you don't have to mandate 2.5. So if you didn't do it this year, you could do it next year because you'd be prepared for it, is what you're basically saying. You just have to do it before the budget is set, which we didn't do. So you're saying it was too late to do it this year because we already planned something, but that's not to say you couldn't do it for next year.
Right. The Board of Assessors, who sets the tax rate, was given a number that we needed to raise, and the Board of Assessors sets the rate according to that. And we need to raise that much because of the appropriations that you voted off of our proposed budget. So yeah, you're voting the shift, but yeah, the tax rate is set by a different body.
But we could change that next year if we chose to 1.5 instead of 2.5.
What you would have to do is cut recommended appropriations
Right.
from our budget in kind of measure to what 1% would be. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And so I could, Jay,
Yep.
Jeremy, so I would say it would be worthwhile to have this conversation with Julie again, ask her to come in and kind of explain to the council how that would work and when we would have to bring in that kind of discussion.
Sure, I think it makes sense.
Okay. And thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, and I don't think Julie has, I think it needs to happen far before Julie's office gets involved. It needs to happen during the budget discussion time. But I would say if, appropriations were cut, we could, that's a budget.
I want to see
discussion.
what I'm saying is I'm sorry, what I'm saying is we need to understand it and know how it could be done, when it could be done. And if we choose to do it, we could do it, but it's something we need to know about. I think the council needs to understand that principle.
Yeah, so Sarah, why
We
don't we
always say that
table
you
this,
could,
why don't we table this discussion for now? Because it's a good discussion to have, and I think we just table it. But in the next couple of weeks, we will take it off the table.
What are you gonna say? You can't say that and not say it out loud, Tom.
Somebody's unmuted. All right, Council Blair, you had a question.
Just to stabilize something, the gun detection in the schools, is the administration committed to using that COVIS receipts from the marijuana outfits for that? Or is it coming out of general budget, general funds?
So once money hits free cash once money hits free cash and is certified, it all kind of is fungible and washed together. But the line we have drawn is that the $584,000 that we received in March of 2021 from Nova Farms 2020, calendar year 2020 operations was then certified in free cash as of 7/1/21. And now we're asking to spend $508,000 specifically on the gunshot detection system. And had we not received host community agreement money for the cannabis operations, we would perhaps not be pursuing this project this way. So yeah, we are directly using the cannabis host community agreement money for this gunshot detection system.
I think that's a good place to put that money. It's public safety, and it's, I know, speaking with the chief, the person, the company you got bids from, it's low bidder, has done the Pentagon, it's done a lot of stuff.
Council Blair, I know you're gonna, can we table this until your committee? I just want to wrap up the free cash discussion if you don't mind.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure before I brought that forward, Jay, that this is where the money was coming from.
Yep.
Because I'm on board with you, spend this money on needs, not wants.
Yep.
So, that we're looking at.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate that, Peter, and thank you for your comments, and I'm looking forward to the gunshot detection conversation. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns about the free cash? All right, Jeremy, thanks so much for coming down, and anything you can get us in terms of the plan or what you're looking at for, if appropriate, to share. for opera as well as free cash. I think the council would enjoy having that. And
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share those documents with you tomorrow morning.
All right. And Jeremy, thank you for your accessibility. Every time I call you or get you outside of City Hall, call you on the way home from City Hall, you're always accessible and certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be a resource for you all.
All right. That being said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn finally at 8:41.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:41.
I would call, Peter, I have somebody waiting for our committee. Did you want to go for next, or they've been
Well, I
waiting?
was gonna go next, but if you've got somebody waiting.
One person. Yeah,
I'm more than happy to entertain that.
thank you. So I would call the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee at 8:41. And we have 3 items of business this evening. The first item of business is concerns a gentleman who's coming in front of us, Albert Richmond. Is Albert still on the line? There he is. I see his name. Let's hope your picture comes up, Albert. Can you hear us?
Albert appears to be muted, Ty.
Albert, are you muted? I'm not hearing anything.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you now.
Okay, I can barely hear you guys right now, but
Well, we'll have to speak up. Can you hear me okay?
I can barely hear you, but I can't hear you.
All right, I'll talk as loud as I can. Albert, before I give a motion, we know that you're interested in joining the Conservation Commission. Can you share not only your name, but your address and how long you've lived in Attleboro to begin? Oh, he appears to have gone off the screen.
Excuse me, Ty,
Yes, please.
did you say the Conservation Commission?
That's what
I
he
think
said.
Disability Commission.
That was a mistake. Thank you. Disability Commission. But I don't see him on the screen. Okay. We'll await Albert. I hope he comes back and move into the next item of business. Still not on. I'm going to go right into this motion. I believe we've had enough discussion. We'll be able to have a little more tonight. From the docket of September 21st, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor. Oh, wait, 1 second. Albert's come back. Albert, can you hear me now? Albert? All right. We're going to have to help Albert out, and he'll come back in 2 weeks because I don't think we're having a connection here. Albert, I'll call you. If you can hear me, I'll call you. We'll set it up again in 2 weeks.
Can you hear me now?
Wow. Perfect. How do you hear
Okay.
me?
All right, I'm here.
Okay, you hear me? Okay,
Yes,
right?
I can hear you, absolutely.
All right, we're in. Thank you. Just made it. So Albert, we know your name.
Yep.
Albert Richmond. Share us your where you live and how long you've lived here.
I've been in the Attleboro area off and on for about 47 years. I originally came out here from University of Minnesota. Came out in 73. Spent 1 year in Northern, about 6 in Attleboro. Went to Connecticut for 1 year and then back since then. So I've been here about 44 years in total in the Attleboro area.
And your address?
I'm at 107 Dean Street here in Attleboro. I've been here about 16 years now. Raised, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You raised?
I was going to say I raised 2 kids here. Both were graduated from Attleboro High School. A great school, by the way, at the time. I'm not sure it's how we're doing right now, but it was a great school at the time, one of the best areas around. Um, I'm a businessman. I've been a businessman for about 45 years. Primarily sales management, but I've also owned a couple of businesses. I used to own Roberti White Trucking Company down in Providence, and I've owned a couple of Dunkin' Donuts. So been around for a long time, and my retired at this point. Well, retired, getting old, I guess would be a better word. And so I'm looking to stay active. I'm trying to stay mentally involved and whatnot. And I really want to be on the commission for disability. Primarily, I'm a double amputee. I'm also a kidney failure patient. So I'm on dialysis and things of that nature. So I'm looking to be an advocate for the handicapped and the disability and the disabled. And that's my focus. I figure that's my lot in life at this point in time. It's something that I'm very passionate about. And I think we are one of the underserved community, along with the homeless and veterans and things of that nature there. So I really want to get active in terms of applying the rules and the regulation in terms of the ADA and making sure that we follow the guidelines. Because a lot of times people that are healthy, on which I was at one point in time, we don't pay attention to the type of things that the handicapped and disabled have to endure because it's not present. We're dealing with so many issues as we go along that we kind of disregard the fact that, well, this is okay for me, but it may not be okay for my neighbors, kind of thing.
Albert, you told me one thing when we were talking that really struck me. You were talking about, because you're in a wheelchair when you go out, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you were talking about how you transport yourself. And
absolutely.
Can you share a little bit of what you said to me the other night?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I found, like I said, if I had my legs, it wouldn't be a big deal. But being in the wheelchair, I find that it's very difficult to maneuver around the city, primarily because of, I hate to say it, but the sidewalks. And I want to point out that the mayor did a great job. He paved my sidewalks this year, so kind of happy for that. My neighbors are extremely happy. But it's very difficult to maneuver around the city. And one of the things that I found is that when you are disabled and handicapped, you have to live within the circumference of the city because all the services are downtown. So it's not like going to Wilmot or on Slater Street. And I know we've done a lot of work around town and stuff, but I think we should pay a little bit more interest on the downtown area in terms of moving around, and not necessarily just for the handicap. I've noticed since the sidewalks are went in down here that we got a lot more foot traffic. People are walking their dogs. People are walking their kids. They got the strollers on the sidewalk now instead of the street because it's more convenient to walk on a nice sidewalk than it is to find grass and gravel and maybe some sidewalk and maybe some big potholes in the sidewalks and stuff like that. Very difficult. And so I find that it's safer to ride in the street than it is to ride on the sidewalk, primarily because we don't have shock absorbers on wheelchairs. So every imperfection in the sidewalk directly affects your body, and where your body is normally already compromised, that pain, like my back is out now because of hitting so many places, potholes if I'm in the street sometimes, or just on the sidewalks that haven't been done. It makes it very, very difficult. I see the city from a different perspective, and that's why I wanted to get involved with the Disability Commission so that we can hopefully address some of these issues or bring them to the attention of whomever is necessary to address those situations here in the city.
So I want to open this up to any questions that the committee, Councilor Kobus.
Thank you. And thank you, Al, for coming in.
Well, can I say this though before you start, Councilman Kobus?
Sure.
Councilman Kobus was one of the persons that helped us get the sidewalks. Let me just say that, and I do appreciate that, by the way.
Of course. And I just wanted to say, I've talked to Al on a number of occasions, and he's always a great advocate for the sidewalk work and for all sorts of things. So I'm incredibly supportive of this. And Al, thank you for volunteering and stepping up to help support the community. So thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. I think that your voice is really needed. And there's a lot of grants and opportunities to definitely get our city up to speed here. I was a social worker at the dialysis unit at the one ARA, the first social worker at Seabra Plaza. So
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so the ARA one, I don't know if you go to Fresenius or ARA, but I have a special place in my heart for individuals on dialysis and helped many get on the transplant unit. So
Okay.
yes.
Well, I'm at the Fresenius one at this point.
Okay, yeah, the next to Dollar Tree, but yeah, so I think that your voice is needed here in the city and really appreciate you joining this.
Oh, well, I appreciate being here.
Yes, Councillor DeSimone, and then Councillor Jay, you'll be next.
Thank you, Council Waterman. Albert, Kathleen DeSimone, I just want to echo what Councillor Holmes said. I think your perspective will be wonderful for the commission. And I thank you for your willingness to volunteer. I'm looking forward to see the good work that you're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jay.
Thank you, Council Waterman. Albert, thank you for sharing your story and thank you for sharing everything that you did with us. It's really not easy. And I think that you're going to be coming from a place of credence and really being able to talk from a place of experience and, you know, really, really glad to have you on this board. So I think it'll be a home run.
All right, thank you, sir. Well, I can tell you good people that one of the things that I have been doing, just because it's me, as I roll around the city of Attleboro, I always stop and talk to people that are in wheelchairs and just ask them what can be done to make their lives a little bit better. What can the city do, kind of thing, even though I wasn't a city employee or wasn't working with the city. It's just an interest of mine, just trying to figure out what type of things would be necessary to make their lives more livable.
Yeah. Councillor Blair. You're muted, I think. Still muted.
You're on now. We're playing catch up here. Thank you, Albert, for volunteering. I think your voice is important. The voice comes from experience, which I think is ultimately important. It's easy to advocate for something, but it means more that somebody's advocating for a cause that they've experienced themselves and understand it. So I do believe you're going to be a real asset to that commission. So good luck and hope to meet you shortly along the line somewhere.
Looking forward to it.
Unless there's anybody else, I don't see any other hands. I'd like to move forward and say again, from the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I would entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Albert Richmond of 107 Dean Street to fill an unexpired term on the Disability Commission to a term to expire February of 2023. Do I have a second? Thank you. Is there any further discussion? One other thing I'd like to respond to, Albert, before we hold a vote.
Sure.
I have noticed on occasion that on certain lights, such as a particular light near Stop and Shop to cross, sometimes our lights don't work. And I
would have brought that up, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, it's just, we need to be aware of it because I had to run out into the street recently on a Sunday morning and help him in a wheelchair, help keep the traffic away from him because he went right out.
Yep. Well, I can tell you honestly, that would have been one of the things I would have addressed at some point in time. I have to go to Stop and Shop probably once or twice a week, and that walk sign does not work. So at some point in time, you get frustrated after about the third or fourth time, and you just take your shot. Hope you don't get hit like a squirrel going across there, but it does not work. It's a small thing, and I'm sure Public Works doesn't notice it because it's on Perry Street there, and it's just a little crosswalk there. But It's dangerous, very dangerous.
Well,
But I do appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, for
Well,
sure.
it didn't work that day.
Well, I can tell you, it don't work much at all. Every now and then it does, though. Not
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, that's true. So with that said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Absolutely none. We thank you, Albert, and we'll bring your name up in council next week for a vote of the council. And after that, and I'm pretty confident you'll be working with the city. After that, you'll be going down to, and if you need any help, give me a call. You'll be going down to City Hall to raise your right hand and get sworn in.
Okay, no, that trip, but my battery will last that far for sure. I can get up to Cape Run Park and back without much of a problem. So the City Hall is not a problem.
Well, good. Okay. Thank you very much.
All
Good
right.
night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, council.
Thank you, Al.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So moving into the next piece of business. From the docket of September 21st, 2021, I would entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to add a grade 9 position of solid waste manager to the exempt classification plan. A request to transfer funding for this position will be sent at a later date. Do I have a second so that we can discuss this? I do not see a second. And so I have never been through this particular thing before.
So you can't tie it. This is Kate. You can't discuss it right now. You can't discuss it at all,
Okay,
right?
moving on. I move on to the next motion. From the docket of September 21st, 2021, I entertain a motion to add a grade 3 position of community engagement manager to the exempt classification plan. A request to transfer funding for this position will be sent later. Do I have a second? All right. I would call for an adjournment. Do I have a
Second.
second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That concludes the business this evening. For the Personnel and Veterans Human Services Committee, I will call for the next committee meeting at an appropriate time.
Thank you. I'd like to call Public Safety Emergency Management to order at 8:58. I have one motion this evening I'd like to discuss. I entertain a motion to appropriate $508,239.27 from account 100-3590000 undesignated fund balance free cash general government to fund 3430 shooter detection to install gunshot detection system to every Attleboro public school.
Second.
Second. Thank you. I started to discuss this and ask some questions on it earlier, but I have talked to the chief and because he's very much in favor of this. He's explained to me that the company that they've contracted or went out to bids for is fantastic. A1, installed it in the Pentagon, done a lot of work overseas with our armed forces. I was concerned that I wanted to make sure the money was coming from the marijuana revenues. And I think you all heard we've been assured that that's where the money's originating. I've asked Kyle, and he's more than willing to do it, if there's any questions at all that the council would like to ask as far as how this is set up, how it works and whatnot. So if we voted out a committee tonight, I will have, or ask Kyle to come in at a future, in middle of next month, at a committee meeting, to come in maybe at 6 o'clock, and we could go over it at 6:30, give them plenty of time. If there's a feeling amongst the council that they want to hear directly from the chief. I seen Mr. Colby's first, Jay. I hate to shut you off.
Yeah, right, buddy.
I've been waiting for that opportunity all night. Go ahead, Mr. Colby.
Thank you, Councilor Blair. So the couple of quick things. I have some firsthand experience with these systems. It can speak to their incredibly effective and useful, and so I am supportive in general for this. But I do think there would be value in having the police chief come in next week to speak a little bit ahead of time, as far as what specifically the value will be for the students in Attleboro, and what the actual reduction in response time would look like for us here. I think there would be value in hearing that. But generally speaking, I'm incredibly supportive of this.
I am also, and I'd like to hear more about it, firsthand from Kyle, but I wanted to bring it to you. And I don't think waiting a week or so is going to make any difference, any amount of difference, I hope, right, in getting this started. I know he was excited about it, especially the vendor. Not only the concept, but the vendor he spoke so highly of. So I will ask him, if we voted out of committee, I will ask him to be here. I haven't got a calendar in front of me, but it probably around what's our next committee meeting, the 9th or something in that area. And I'll ask him to come in early so it won't interfere with the rest of committee meetings. Any other questions or comments? Oh, hi, Jay, forgot about you. Go ahead.
Appreciate that, sir. So yeah, like Todd said, I think this is one of those situations that I'd rather have it and never need it than need it and not have it. I had the opportunity about a year and a half, 2 years ago, to participate in active shooter drills at the high school with the Attleboro police. And I'll tell you, it was a drill, it was a role play. It was harrowing, and I still have nightmares about it, especially when you think that you send your kid to school, it's a reasonable expectation they're coming home safe. And I think anything we can do that really helps to keep the children safe, I think it's an opportunity that I don't know that every city has right now. So I think this is a good safety precaution and measure. And I spoke to Chief Hegney yesterday, told me a little bit more about it. What I would ask Council Blair is when he comes in, because I want to know more about how it works. I want to know really, want to hear more about it from him, but really kind of see how it works and just get a feel for that. But this is something that I support 110%.
Well, maybe, Jay, we could get a representative for the company to come in with them, even if it puts it off another meeting or so. I'll run that by him and see what comes of it. But it's a good use of city money, Jay. I know I spoke earlier and said we have city money, but let's not spend it on wants. Let's spend it on needs. And this is a need as far as I'm concerned. Okay.
So excuse me, Council Blair? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So what's the purpose of voting it out of committee tonight?
Because I want to, Kate.
Yeah, but we want to have the chief come in first, right? And do demonstration.
I'm not going to vote on it till after he comes in.
That's what I wanted to hear from you. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to have him and vote it the same night. But I'd like to get it out of committee.
Unusual. Okay.
I'm an unusual guy.
Council Bear, may I?
Yes, Kathleen.
Thank you, Peter. First of all, I appreciate your invite to the chief because I too am interested in learning more about it. I think it's also important for whomever may be watching this to learn and hear more about it. You know, the larger community, I'm sure, is very interested in this. So thank you for bringing the chief to the council.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. I have no other business this evening for public safety and emergency management. I will request the committee meeting, the next committee meeting at the appropriate time.
You need to adjourn.
Excuse me, move to adjourn.
Second.
Move to adjourn at 9:05. Jay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Traffic and transportation is canceled for this evening.
Hi, will you cancel Richard's capital improvements?
Richard has left a message through Virginia that he would like me to go forward and chair the meeting this evening.
Perfect. Go ahead. Your turn.
Okay, so where's my, okay. I am calling the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee together as the vice chair at 9:06. Well, I guess it's got to be a little later, 8, we'll call it 8. So we have two motions for this evening. The first one from the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I would entertain a motion to accept a donation of a downtown action strategy for the city of Attleboro funded through Mass Development and prepared by Stantec as part of the Transformative Development Initiative. Do I have a second? Thank you. I would like to take advantage of this next moment to read a couple paragraphs written by Catherine Fierick so that not only the council, but those listening understand better what this is. As part of the Transformative Development Initiative funded through the Mass Development, Stantec has completed a downtown action strategy for the city of Attleboro. The document is a quote, gift of services from Mass Development to the city, requires council approval. The downtown action strategy provides a wealth of economic and demographic data from real estate analysis to retail leakage and commuter behavior patterns. It highlights a series of catalytic development sites, along with estimates of housing units and retail space that each could support. The report concludes with a series of action items to continue to grow the downtown economy. This strategy will greatly assist economic development efforts over the next 5 to 10 years, providing metrics to chart success. And Stantec's Urban Places team is happy to present their findings and suggestions to the municipal council upon request. So we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion from the committee? And Kate, I assume you are a part of the committee this evening.
I'm sorry, Ty, what did you say? I apologize.
I assume that you are sitting on the committee this evening in place of Richard. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay, is there any comments from the committee? Not seeing any, we'll go forward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes 3-0. And also from the docket of October 19th, 2021, I would entertain a motion to approve the following loan order. Ordered that $675,000 be appropriated for the cost of purchasing and equipping a fire engine. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $675,000 under section 7-1 of chapter 44 of the general laws or any other enabling authority, and that the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any such a premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. Do I have a second?
Second.
And is there any discussion?
Does Rick have any notes or anything that he left you or no?
No, he didn't leave me any notes except the message through Virginia that I was going to lead the meeting and that he was supportive. Any
Okay.
other questions? Moving forward, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The vote passes 3-0. And so that concludes, well, hold on. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And that concludes the business of the personnel. Oh, no, excuse me. That concludes the business of the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee. We'll meet at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
I'd like to call the Public Works Committee to order at 9:11. I have 4 items of business this evening to discuss with you. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve the appropriation of $53,379.80 from account 11241000-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1650-1000-587039 Park Heavy Truck to purchase a 2022 Ford F-350 truck with a Fisher plow.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. So this request obviously is in from the Park and Forestry Departments. It's been the #1 on the capital improvements list for quite some time. The existing Ford F-350 is already 13 years old and they're not using it currently because they can't. They actually sent it out for some major engine repairs and it was not feasible for them as the cost oversaw the repairs. They don't have to go out to bid because a quote was obtained from the McGovern Municipal Auto Group, which is part of the Greater Boston Police Council. So they've gone and they've gotten a quote from them for this amount, and it includes a Fisher plow, which the other truck did not have a plow on it. This truck will be used, it's used for nights like tonight, like for when it's high winds. So they really could use it tonight. So it's too bad that they don't have it. It's going to have the 2-way radio installation, the lettering of the vehicle, and a back rack to protect the rear window from branch damage. Are there any questions?
No.
Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021. I entertain a motion to approve the transfer of $75 from account 16501-000-519130 Park licenses to account 16501-000-514060 Park prior year license to pay for fiscal year 21 hoisting license reimbursement to an employee.
Second.
Thank you. This is to pay for the hoisting license for one of their employees, and obviously this is contractual. We just did one a couple weeks ago for DPW as well. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I entertain a motion to transfer $2,565 from account 11241000-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 11241000-546016 Citywide Gate Fob for gate opening fobs for the DPW Highway Yard.
Second.
Thank you. It just sounds so funny, doesn't it? The fobs. I know we all know what a fob is, but this is necessary because as you know, when DPW employees and they're in their vehicles and the gates closed, they got to get in or they got to get in with their fobs, even if they don't have the equipment, if they're not in their truck, so they can get in and get to work. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. From the docket of October 19th, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve a supplemental appropriation for the solid waste program in the amount of $10,865.34 to account 151010000-529070 health waste recycling collection due to an increase in residential units participating in the program.
Second.
Thank you. So obviously we have 57 more than we budgeted for this year. And that's the difference of the $10,865.34. I did have one of our colleagues ask me a question with regards to when Waste Management doesn't pick up your barrel. A lot of people will call City Hall and say, hey, my trash didn't get picked up. So we just have to remind the public that they should do that, because we actually get, if 3 times within a 6-month period, your barrel didn't get picked up, we actually get to charge Waste Management for that. And Waste Management has cameras on their trucks. So when they pull up to a house and there isn't a barrel there, they actually take a picture of the house to say there wasn't a barrel. But if they don't have that picture to prove it, then we go back and forth, the city between Waste Management. And at the end of the day, if you ended up with 3 of them within 6 months at the same address, then we actually get a stipend for that. Do I have any comments or questions?
I have one, Vice President Jackson. Has that been happening a lot? I mean, with the labor issues and whatnot, has that been an issue for some folks?
Well, Kathleen, I did ask Jessica Santos about that, and she said she hasn't had to do that in a while, but she has done it in the past. And when they do it, Waste Management doesn't actually send us a check. They take it off the bill.
Okay.
They send the bill, and then we just send them a smaller check.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that something? I didn't realize that it was within, it has to happen to you 3 times, 6 months time, and the city gets back money. Too bad we didn't get the money, the resident. Council Holmes, did you have a question?
I was just going to comment the same as Council DeSimone and just say that is good to know. I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Yeah, that was in the new contract. So yeah, it was pointed out to me by one of our colleagues. Yes. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And I just want to apologize for not having my face up there, but I'm home alone and the winds have picked up and I've been running in and out of the house. And so I'm having a really bad hair day. Thought I'd share that with you. Anyways, I'd like to call for an adjournment of the Public Works Committee.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 9:18. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call the Zoning and Land Use Committee to order at 9:18. We just have one item of business tonight. So from the docket of November 2021, I entertain a motion to hold a public hearing on November 9th, 2021, in accordance with Section 2-11.2 of the city ordinances to declare that the 20,000 square foot piece of property located on Pond Street in the town of Seekonk that the city of Attleboro owns is available for disposition.
Second.
Motion's in order. This is just a call for a public hearing to potentially sell a piece of property. And it's the property adjacent to 120 Pond Street in Seekonk.
Excuse me, you say that's November 9th?
November 9th.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we are adjourned at 9:20. Thank you.
So I think it's Laura next, right? That's who sits next to you, right, Todd? Is it Laura or Sarah that sits next to you?
Well, no, it's Laura, but I don't see Laura.
There she is. Okay.
She was here.
I have licenses next.
Right down there.
She's not muted.
So Laura, I think you're frozen. Wave to us.
You want me to do mine?
Yes, please.
Okay.
No, she's back.
So I'd like to, oh,
She's back.
Am I,
go ahead, Law. No, forget it.
And she's gone.
So I'd like to call the City Property and Claims Committee to order at 9:21. And I only have one motion this evening. And it is from the docket of November 2nd, 2021. I entertain a motion to accept the donation of $100 in Stop and Shop gift cards from an anonymous donor for the Health Department.
Second.
Thank you. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Do I have any questions or concerns? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. And I would like to call for an adjournment.
Second.
Second.
Okay, and so we are adjourned. City Property and Claims Committee is adjourned at 9:21. Thank you.
am I here?
Yes,
I can,
Okay.
yes.
You're here. You
you're
were.
not now.
You were.
I can go. I have a brief update for my committee. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'd like to call Ordinance Election Legislative Matters Committee to order at 9:22. The update I have is I spoke with Gary. ComCon is meeting this week, and they're going to have some information related to the amendments this Friday. So right when I get those, I will make sure that it goes out to the full council and schedule for a committee meeting to review that. He said upon a first review, he thinks that it looks good, but wanted to kind of get the input and be thorough with it, did not want to just kind of give it a green light right away. So I hope my committee members are okay with that. And I'll have the information Friday to hopefully go to the full council and then schedule for a committee meeting and we can discuss it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep, that's good. I was so happy to hear, oh, excuse me, may I, Council? That was nice of Gary to send us like the very next day, send out that email. And I know he's very grateful that you allowed him to get everything together with Nick and with the city solicitor. So they made sure they had it all together so we can talk about this. I know, he just couldn't do it within 3-day period.
I agree. So
I
think
agree.
That's the perfect plan, and I will keep everybody posted. When Friday comes along, I'll send out that email to everyone, and then I will call for a committee meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, am I here?
Yes.
Talk fast.
Okay, so let's call License Committee to order at 9:23. I have 8 motions.
Ooh.
From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve a Class 2 license renewal for Just Trailers, Inc. at 1863 County Street with 12 customer spaces and 7 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? I went to all the following that I'm reading, I went to and inspected. I'm only leaving one off the list. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I move to approve a Class 2 license renewal for 100% auto sales at 21 Washington Street with 10 customer parking spaces and 48 display spaces.
Second.
Any questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve a Class 2 license renewal for Bristol County Auto Sales LLC at 227 Pine Street with 10 customer parking spaces and 10 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve a Class 1 license renewal for JT Automotive LLC DBA Kia of Attleboro at 795 Newport Ave with 46 customer parking spaces and 195 display spaces.
Second.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Quick, it says Class 2 here.
Nope, that's the one above it.
Oh, do I have the wrong one? Sorry.
Yeah, this is for Kia. This is a Class 1.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I entertain a motion, from the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve a Class 2 license renewal for Trusted Auto Inc. at 64 Pleasant Street with 5 customer parking spaces and 18 display spaces.
Second,
Any questions?
no.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve a Class 2 license renewal for New England Automax Inc. DBA Automax pre-owned at 800 Washington Street with 10 customer parking spaces and 100 display spaces.
Second,
Thank you. Any questions?
no.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve a Class 1 license renewal from National Van Builders at 70-84 Pine Street and 7 Parker Street with 8 customer parking spaces and 45 display spaces.
Second,
Thank you. Any questions?
nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of November 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to approve an automatic amusement device license renewal for New England Authentic Eats LLC DBA Papagenos at 103 Pleasant Street with 1 coin-operated machine.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye, motion passes. That's all the business I have for licenses committee tonight. I'd like to call for an adjournment at 9:27.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that concludes business for this evening. Am I correct, everyone?
I think so.
There's
Great.
there's tons of things for us to sign at City Hall too, just to let everyone know. I don't know if everybody got down there.
Thank you. That's correct. Yes. All right. Have fun picking up our signs tomorrow.
Good night.
Bye.
Aye.